Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Innovators Livecast series. My name is Sydney Kaplan, and I work on our content and community team here at Brand Innovators, which helps put together both virtual and in-person events like this. Welcome to our Evolution of Retail, Loyalty, and Lifecycle Livecast. Today is super special, and I'm thrilled to be kicking off this event. We have a phenomenal event today with an awesome lineup. Before we get started, we'd like to thank all the marketers, sponsors, and even you, all of the audience, for helping making this event possible. Throughout the event, you'll be able to use the Q&A widget and the chat widget at the bottom of your screen. We encourage you to engage with our speakers and other attendees using the widgets throughout the program. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tim Murphy, the CEO of Branch Basics, and his moderator, Gina Cavello, the CRO of Autogen.
Hey there.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Hey, Tim.
Hey. Hi, Sydney.
Hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sydney. This is really exciting. Tim and I got to connect briefly yesterday, and I dare to say I'm probably your consumer, and so I'm super passionate about this topic, and so I'm very excited to be able to be part of this. So thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Brand Innovators, and thank you, Tim. I think a great way for us to kick off would be just to get a little bit of background around the company and some of the stuff that you shared with me yesterday around how it started and the mission. It was really interesting. I would love you to share that with all of the viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and super excited for this chat. Yeah, like as I mentioned yesterday, the company was founded by 3 women in Texas, 2 college roommates, and one of their aunts. 2 younger college roommates, Kelly and Allison, and then their aunt, Marilee. It's a long story, and I'll try and make it as short as I can, but the story really starts with Marilee when she was raising her son many years ago. He was in grade school and exposed to a really harsh pesticide that's now banned. And he went from kind of a young, healthy boy to somebody who would react to almost everything that he came in contact with. His immune system had been injured and kind of damaged, completely damaged. And he would react to things like the paint on the wall or the varnish on the table, the cleaning products that had been used, weeks ago. And Marilee didn't know what was going on, went and saw all these different medical experts all over Texas. And they basically threw up their hands and they said, "I'm sorry to say this, Marilee, but we don't know what's going on with your son. And we think it's best for him to live in a safe bubble where he doesn't come into contact with any of these types of things." And the long story short is that she refused to accept that diagnosis, and instead, over about 5 years, nursed her son back to health using food as medicine and a super clean environment free of toxic chemicals. And the story kind of has a remarkable ending in a way, because her son couldn't go to school because he would react to everything at school. He was homeschooled, and he became the first homeschooled kid to ever graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. So it was this kind of remarkable journey of healing. Marilee learned a ton about chemical injury, chemical sensitivity, and fast forward many years, her niece Allison is graduating from college, and she's got a bunch of mysterious pain that she can't get to the bottom of. I think one doctor even diagnosed her with MS, and she was at the end of her rope, and she called up her aunt and said, "Can I come and live with you for the summer? I know you did miraculous things for my cousin and your son." And Marilee said yes. And so she brought her college roommate from the University of Texas, Kelly, and the 2 of them went and lived in the hill country of Texas with Marilee for the summer. And by that time, Marilee was doing a lot of consulting for the chemically sensitive community, people that were chemically injured or chemically sensitive. And they just learned a ton. And they ate all clean food. They lived in this clean environment. And sure enough, Allison's symptoms started to subside. And even Kelly, who went in kind of relatively healthy, things like menstrual cramps, dry, itchy eyes, dry skin, stuff that she kind of thought was normal, all of that started to subside as well. And so rather than looking for a full-time job when they were kind of ending their time with Marilee at the end of the summer, they said, we need to put Marilee's brain on the internet. Like, this woman has something to offer the world. And so they started Branch Basics really as a way to do that. So the cleaning products that we sell, they're really just an economic engine for this mission of helping people understand the impact of these toxic chemicals in our everyday lives, and really just to take, more broadly speaking, to take the next journey on your to the next step on their health journey. So we say that we're an education company first and a product company second, and the founders continue to live that mission every day. So that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years almost now. So
it's such a great story. And I think I'm totally gonna butcher this, but there's this thing even in like the food wellness community about just sort of you're living at a baseline, so you don't really understand how much better it can be until you sort of go above that. It's like from okay and mediocre to great. And so it's really exciting, and thank you so much for sharing it, because it's such a great story. So and you guys are direct to consumer, as we mentioned yesterday, so you're selling everything straight through your website. How do you guys go about finding your consumers?
Yeah, so we really lean on our founders and lean on the mission, right? So what they did instinctively in the very beginning, when they were just starting the company and they were starting from scratch and they had 0 followers and 0 sales and all of that, they jumped on Instagram because it was kind of the largest megaphone that they could find at the time. And they started getting their message out to the world. Oftentimes it was things that they learned from Marilee. They would kind of get on and talk about kind of their time together with her, or her perspective on different health and wellness topics. And that lifestyle content, that health and wellness content and education is really how we build a following and have built the business. And most of our new customers come through that channel now, whether it's through our organic efforts or our paid efforts on Instagram, or we work with lots of influencers on social media as well. And so that's the primary way that we do it. Over the last 5 years since I've been involved, we've expanded the funnel, and it's a bit more complicated now, but really the vast majority of our new customers come through social media.
That's super interesting and very, very important channel at that. How do you think about the bottom of the funnel? So, we've got them through the top, they've bought the products, they love it, they maybe buy more or they expand what they're buying. How do you think about brand loyalty? Like, what does that bottom of the funnel mean to Branch Basics?
Yeah, so just in general, as we think about the funnel, kind of at the top, we have our PR efforts and kind of like broad awareness. We spend lots of time and energy on our own content. So that kind of is higher level in the funnel. Like we drive lots of people to our blog on all different topics, meditation, food, different things. It's not always about cleaning. So that's kind of the top of the funnel. Then we start to get into kind of more influencers that are helping us spread the word. And then at the very bottom, we kind of think of digital media, whether it's, paid Google ads or paid Facebook ads, that kind of thing. So in general, that's kind of how we think about our funnel, and particularly the bottom of the funnel. We're hoping that by the time they get down to the bottom, they've been to our site. We're kind of retargeting them by then, right? And as it relates to loyalty, once they've made a purchase and keeping them interested and engaged with the brand, it really comes back to social media. So we think of ourselves as an education company, as I mentioned, and a content company. And that content is not just how to clean your oven or, all of those things. Yes, we do talk about that, but we try and keep people engaged with really high quality health and wellness content that they can't get otherwise. And I say that not because there's not great people out there doing great content, but Marilee's got a unique perspective on the health and wellness community, and how she approaches different topics, whether it's food or, like I said, meditation or clean products, all that kind of stuff. So EMFs, we'll talk about all different kinds of stuff that tends to be fairly forward thinking.
In terms of, because you are a direct consumer and they are obviously on your site and purchasing, you must have a wealth of first party data, which is, as you know, in today's world, gold. Yeah. What is data a top priority for you finding new customers, or how does data work within your media mix, or within how you guys are addressing the market?
Yeah, so data is hugely important, and it's been one of the reasons that we've resisted the urge, I think, to go to retail. Having that as an education company, having that direct tie and relationship with the consumer, and having all the data that goes along with a direct-to-consumer model is incredibly valuable. And it's been, like I said, one of the reasons that we have resisted going to retail. That's something that we're super excited about. We're excited about Amazon. We're excited about retail shelves at the right time. But for now, we continue to learn about our consumer. We continue to learn about what she wants. And we continue to build an even deeper and deeper relationship with her as it relates to not just cleaning products, but kind of her health and wellness journey more broadly. So, we are, I can't say that we're super sophisticated in the way that we're using every last bit of data. In fact, sometimes I think the challenge for us is that we have too much data, and we have to kind of sift through and figure out what is the meaningful data in a world where Facebook has got their own set of data and Google's got their own set of data, and they're all claiming credit for different purchases and conversions and different things. Like, sorting through all the data and making sense of it is our biggest challenge at this point. So,
and how are you guys looking at that in terms of identity, as things sort of shift and change at the end of this year with iOS, and then also the deprecation of cookies? Are you guys, is Branch Basics looking, how are you looking at identity?
We're just getting into that. We just recently hired a head of e-commerce who's starting in about a month. So super excited to have him on, somebody with a bit more knowledge than I have as it relates to the nitty gritty of e-commerce and data, and really kind of getting everything out of that system that we can. I will say, we were significantly impacted by the iOS changes, and we're clawing our way back and doing the best that we can. But it's been a huge challenge. And like I said, the biggest challenge for us right now is sorting through all the data that we have to kind of attribute what is playing what role. And I can't say we have a great handle on it right this second. We've been told by this candidate that we were interviewing and ultimately hired, and other experts, that it's pretty remarkable what you can get out of a Google Analytics if it's set up properly. Like, I've talked about, should we be investing in other kind of data warehousing solutions so that we can kind of have one source of truth and all of that. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet in terms of scale and size, where that makes a ton of sense. But I'm excited about digging into Google Analytics and really kind of making sure that that's set up properly to get, what people are telling me is kind of 90% of the value out of a system like that, and really starting to make sense of our funnel and what parts are effective and what parts are less effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that makes total sense. And what do you think about, as it stands now, knowing that you guys you're going to go on this journey where you get more sophisticated with the data and then attribution, what does attribution look like right now?
Right now, we are spending kind of what we think is appropriate on, I would say, really three different levers: influencers, paid Facebook and paid search ads. And we're kind of picking an aggressive level to spend it on all of those. And I'm trying not to get kind of too caught up in the details that each one of those systems tell us, but rather kind of pull up and look at kind of the business as a whole and saying, okay, we're spending pretty aggressively on those channels. What do our profit margins look like? What do our new customers every day look like? Is the length of relationship with customers, going up and to the right? We're trying to kind of look at our subscriptions, up and to the right. All of those kind of higher level metrics, just because I think, if you get too granular, there's just overlap, right? Facebook and Google are both claiming credit for different purchases. And the reality is they're probably both right in the sense that they both had some kind of impact on that, right? And so there are people much more sophisticated than I in this realm, but without some of that experience and that expertise, we're really trying to kind of spend aggressively to grow, because that's really what's important for us as a young direct-to-consumer company, and yet make sure that the whole model is fundamentally sound, right? That we're still making money, that we've got cash in the bank, and that we're not having to raise, $50 million to grow our business, kind of thing.
It makes total sense. And I think you're starting at you're starting at a point where you have a source of truth, as you mentioned, in your own data, right? So you think about some of the larger CPG companies out there who are having to sort of reverse engineer, because you have all those different touch points and different retailers and extensions, and trying to figure out, what does first party data look like for CPG? Often it doesn't really exist. And it is, site data, or it could be some models. And so it's interesting because you're starting, I feel like, almost ahead of the curve, where you have so much rich data about your audiences from the get-go. And as you expand, you'll likely know a lot more about your consumers.
Yeah, it's amazing. We know a ton about our consumers. We have really pure data, as it relates to just data coming out of Shopify, right? Like that's kind of the Bible. I mean, if we want to know new customers last month or whatever else it is, right? Like, well, we've got incredibly rich data. That's just been, I think, one of the best parts about staying disciplined. Obviously, and sticking to direct to consumer, sticking to a product line that doesn't just kind of constantly go like this. And obviously there's benefits on the supply chain when you're a relatively small company and you're not having to manage, 50 different SKUs from 50 different manufacturers and all that kind of stuff. But that discipline has served us really well over the last 5 years or so.
Talk to me a bit about your consumer. So, you think about, you mentioned wellness and influencer marketing and social media. When you think about, other than myself, what is the profile of the Branch Basics consumer? What are there several, or are there just the wellness enthusiast? Can you take me through a little bit about how you think about the audience and the mindset?
Yeah, the way when we look at the landscape more broadly, the health and wellness landscape, it's really going through a pretty remarkable transition. And the way that we like to think about it is kind of in 3 stages. The products that we put in our body, the products that we put on our body, and the products that we use around our body. And so it's gone in that order. So if you think about, many years ago, the food that we all buy, starting with kind of Whole Foods, and how much improvement we've made on clean food, on healthy food. It's been quite remarkable. We're kind of firmly in the second phase right now. All the products that we put on our body, when you think about the remarkable growth that clean beauty has had, right? Like that is kind of the really what is kind of going more mainstream, if you will, right now. We play in the third phase, which is all the products around your body. And that's things like furniture or the paint that you're putting on the walls in your nursery. All of these have toxic chemicals in them that deserve to get cleaned up, just like what happened in food and is happening with clean beauty. And so we are really going after, a pretty forward-thinking health and wellness enthusiast that has already cleaned up their diet, that is already kind of using clean beauty products and those type of things, and is anxious to take that even further by taking the next step into the third phase. And so, it's a fairly limited market right now, but it's growing like crazy. And it's part of such a bigger pie that it feels quite endless at this point, right? Like we're riding a big wave. And so that's been awesome. And I think we're timing it well. We're sufficiently out ahead, but not so far out ahead that people that kind of don't get what we're doing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, being a dog mom myself, I think it's incredibly important to make sure that the stuff that you're using in your house doesn't adversely affect whether you're a mom or you're a dog mom or, or just someone who ascribes to health and wellness. I completely agree with you. I think it's so important to be mindful of those things.
Yeah, that's what we're really passionate about is human health and pet health in your case. Much of our industry, if you think about cleaning, there's all the conventional products out there that are pretty toxic. And then you have kind of a second wave of products that are really kind of more environmentally friendly, but a lot of them are still filled with ingredients that we wouldn't recommend, right? Fragrance being one of them. Fragrance is where you can hide a lot of toxic chemicals that people are just not aware of, and you don't have to label it. You can kind of just use the bucket fragrance, and that can be code for many, many different chemicals that are kind of toxic. So where we think the puck is going and where we're really passionate is human health, pet health. The health of the environment is now pretty much table stakes. Everyone's got to be thinking that way, right? And where the puck is going is human health, and we've got to start thinking about the impact of these chemicals on our kids, on our pets, and on our health.
Well, so much of it, as you mentioned before, is education, right? People don't know what they don't know. You mentioned fragrance. We spoke yesterday. I owned my own paleo bakery for a few years as a side business, and when you see artificial flavors, that's another thing. No one really asks or digs around what does artificial flavors means. And when you actually Google it, it's quite terrible, and horrifying. So I think, as you mentioned, education is such an important part of of consumers understanding really what they're putting, as you mentioned, in and around and
on and around. Yeah.
On and around. That was it. So what about emerging channels for Branch Basics? Are you thinking about TV as you're producing all this content? Like what is the next media channel that you might dip your toe into as you start thinking ahead?
Yeah, good question. Our founders are so comfortable with Instagram because they've been doing it for so long, and they're kind of in that age and stage where that's kind of what they do with their friends and both personally and professionally. What I'm excited about, short of TV, it would be awesome to get to a point where that makes sense for us financially. But short of that, I'm excited about other digital channels. So there's no reason that we shouldn't be a strong presence on Pinterest. There's no reason that we can't be exploring with TikTok. All of these things, when we're focused on Instagram, it's great because we have a really strong beachhead there. But I'm excited about exploring in all of these other digital channels. And TV would be amazing. Even, as we think about more sales channels, Amazon is kind of the elephant in the room that we debate every day. As the new customer acquisition costs go up steadily, month over month over month, we have to start thinking differently. It's not just about digital media, but it's also about different sales channels and different ways to access new consumers without, short of going to retail, which is always an option and something that we're excited about down the road. So
Amazon, in the sense of being on their platform too for sales versus the content. Amazon's such a big company.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry. I was thinking about, being on the website and selling product through Amazon. We've heard is a good customer acquisition channel, and it's obviously got its own challenges, like every channel, right? Even digital media. There's no silver bullet, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or though, it would make an amazing Prime. The story would probably make a really great documentary on Prime. I'm just going to put that out there.
That's right. I love it. I love that.
Talk to me a bit about the pandemic. I think, it obviously impacted a lot of businesses within this space. You've got the likes of like a Peloton. Obviously things like cleaning supplies were things that were in short supply during that time. How has it affected, and then sort of, has it changed or pivoted your business in any way?
Yeah, so it's funny, in the beginning of the pandemic, in the very beginning, we didn't know what was going on, and we're growing quickly as it is. We were growing quickly back then, and we didn't know if we just kind of hit a new trajectory of growth or if there was something else going on. Obviously, it became very clear when people kept telling us that they were going to Target to buy cleaning supplies and there was nothing on the shelf, and then they were open to trying Branch Basics because the desire to be clean and clean their homes was super high. So we were very fortunate to have a huge boost from the pandemic. The one thing I would say is, and this is a tribute to the founders and the business that they built, but when people try Branch Basics, they come back at an incredibly high rate. And so we got a bunch of trial out of the pandemic. I think people fell in love. Lots of people that tried us for the first time fell in love with Branch Basics, and many of them are still with us today. So, we were one of the few businesses that got a huge bump, and just feel incredibly fortunate in that way. So it's been really good for us. It's slowed down, obviously, but we've been able to keep lots of those folks. So it's been good.
That's great. And did you have to think about your business differently as things slowed down?
Part of the challenge was we had a couple different things going on at once. We had iOS happen as the pandemic, and that volume started to subside a bit. And so it was a difficult end of the last year, kind of the last 6 months, or the second half of last year was pretty difficult. We've come back pretty strong, so that's exciting. But it's one of those things where, we debated kind of pulling spend, we debated doubling down. I mean, all the things were on the table, right? And we definitely pulled back from Facebook a little bit, just given the iOS challenges. But I'm really glad that we didn't pull away completely. And we stayed fairly aggressive. I mean, we spend quite a bit of our sales as a percentage of revenue on advertising and marketing. And, that's because we don't have, we're not getting discovered on the shelves of Target or even, on Amazon and that kind of thing. So we need to be aggressive. And I'm glad we stuck it out, because I think it paid off. I would have been reluctant to kind of double down given the financials, but I also would have been reluctant to kind of pull away completely just to maintain margin at the cost of growth. So it was a balance. And I think, we kind of stayed the course, and it served us well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's always a tough decision to make, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you're selling. It could be, Branch Basics. It could be what we're selling here at Autogent. If you don't have a great marketing team, or you're not telling people who you are and what you're doing, how else would they know? So, marketing is such a vital component in sales.
Yeah. 100%.
So you talked a bit about influencers. How do you, and it's something I struggled with myself when I owned my own business. How do you look at like ROI? Is it direct like sales? How do you, I mean, sometimes it can't be I feel like it's sometimes not a straight line when you think about the cost of an influencer, and they sometimes are obviously very expensive depending on who you're working with. And I myself found it a challenge to tie it back to sales. So just interested in how you are looking at that sort of cost.
Yeah. So influencers have been one of our strongest channels from the beginning. And it's been remarkable to see kind of 5 years ago where that industry was and where it is today. I mean, the changes have been crazy, like every part of our business, I guess. But we started off in a very kind of organic way where we weren't paying for any post. We would give free product away and that kind of thing, but we wouldn't pay for any posts in the very beginning. And we were using kind of micro and even nano influencers. And then as we had more success with that and that grew, we started to explore paying for posts for our bigger influencers and that kind of thing. And now, and part of that has been the company has grown, and part of that is just the industry has changed, right? And more influencers are able to require payment. So it's something that has been, a remarkable lever for us. We have the benefit of tying most of that back to sales, right? We give them a code to use, and when the code's used, we tie that back to the influencer, or we use an affiliate link, and we can tie it back that way. So we have pretty good data. The thing that I think is challenging for us is just how aggressive do you get, right? How much do you lean into kind of a lifetime value approach versus let's get this investment back on the first touch, right? Or first purchase. And we've tried to strike a balance there, right? I don't want to be betting 100% on kind of the future and running an unsustainable business. At the same time, it's an amazing channel, and I think you'd be leaving growth on the table if you had such high and stringent requirements as to get every bit of investment back on the first purchase. So we've tried to strike a balance, and I think over time, again, that kind of balanced approach, the nuanced approach, while staying aggressive, generally speaking, it has served us well.
Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting. Do you see more value in some of these micro or nano influencers versus some of these larger influencers in terms of we have gotten, as you mentioned, social media has changed so much over the last 5 years, and the consumer has gotten a lot smarter, and when they see it's a promoted post or it's a sponsored post, do you feel like there's less validity to those larger, a million followers versus perhaps someone who's got a smaller, more focused community? The answer could be no. I'm just curious to see if that's something that impacts your business.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And we've kind of, we've tried to play that balance, because there are larger influencers that really move the needle. There are also larger influencers that we've spent money on and it's been a total bust, right? And so you have to have that kind of experimentation mindset where, you can't hold it so tightly, where you're just not willing to take a risk. At the same time, what you're saying is absolutely true. These micro and nano influencers, especially for a smaller business, can be really, really impactful. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say that we've really built the business on micro and nano influencers. They've been incredibly good to us. And I think that changes as the business scales, and you have to kind of make bigger bets. And the challenge with that is just, you can make a big bet and it can be a total bust. And we've had that before. So.
Yeah, no, super interesting space as it continues to evolve, but definitely a very valuable channel. We're coming up on 10 minutes. I just want to check in to see if there's any questions we should be taking from the chat at this point. Sydney, should we be?
If any of the questions came through on your end, then definitely do that. But if not, you can just go with whatever questions you have.
Okay, just wanted to check in with everyone and see if there was anything we should pause for as we're running up against 10 minutes. Tim, talk to me about what do you see the next 5 years look like for Branch Basics?
Yeah, real quick, I did get one. I just found the Q&A, and there's one that says, where are the products available? So you can find them on branchbasics.com. That's really the only place that they're available right now, just given that we're D2C. But to your question, over the next 5 years, I'd love to see real growth in 2 areas. The first and most important is the mission and the content. I would love to look more like a content company, an education company, doing content at the highest of levels. Pick your company, but I mean Goop or any of these companies that are really doing content well. I would love to kind of lean into that and see that kind of evolve and see us improve as we have from over the last 5 years. And then the second is from kind of an availability and channel perspective to this question that we just got, where are the products available? We would love to make these products available, first of all, to expand the product line, but then also to expand the channels where we sell, Amazon, other marketplaces like Thrive, Target.com, and then to eventually hit the store shelves of the Costco's and the Targets and the Walmarts of the world. So, that's kind of the next 5 years from us is growing in kind of both of those areas.
Amazing. And when you think about companies that do it really well, what are the things you think like a Goop does extremely well? If you could pinpoint one thing that they've done really well in the content space.
I just think, when I see the Goop content, like I just love the fact that they know who they are and they're not ashamed to kind of live into that, right? And we're similar in a way. Both Branch Basics and Goop have a pretty forward thinking perspective on health and wellness. Gwyneth is a little bit more prone to the shock value, I think, than our founders are. But she's done an amazing job building that brand and leaning into the content that she wants to see, right? Like that's what I think is most important when you're doing content. And I remind our company and I tell our founders this all the time, like we have to create content that we find engaging and trust that there are many other people out there like us, right? As opposed to when I've worked at bigger companies or you're going after a market that you're not selling or that you're not kind of a part of, you're constantly guessing what other people want. And it's just a much harder place to be. And startups typically don't have the resources to do that kind of thing, right? And so when I see the Goop content, what I love about it is they're just unabashedly Goop. They and it's easier for them because it's really kind of, built by one person, right? Or it's inspired by one person. And we have a similar situation where we have 3 founders that they have unique views on the world. And I want to continue to lean into that and for them to continue to kind of be the best version of themselves. And if we can do that, I think the content will sing. That's kind of what I love about what Goop has done.
Yeah, they're definitely a really fun brand. And as you scale, I think, look, same thing, Autogen's a company that's growing massively and we have this very unique culture. How do you keep that sort of close as you build out, as you guys scale? How do you keep those fundamentals that yourself and your founders, the passion and why they launched the business in the first place? It's always a difficult thing to do as you become much larger.
It is.
I just want to jump in and let you guys know you have about 2 minutes left. So just, no worries at all. Just some final thoughts and just kind of give you that warning.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I can answer that quickly and just say, Zoom actually has been remarkable for that. We have a remote team from Portland, Oregon to New York City and everywhere in between. And one of the things that we found incredibly rewarding on that front is the in-person get-togethers. And we've actually prioritized kind of fun when we get together in person because we can do a lot of the work on Zoom. But that trust building and kind of having fun together and really getting to know each other on a deeper level, that's been really rewarding. So we've done that a couple of times and we're going to continue to prioritize that.
I love it. I mean, I can't wait to get out to Minneapolis and get to visit you guys in person, obviously in the summer, not now,
That's
but
exactly right. You're welcome anytime, but the summer's best.
thank you so much. This has been amazing. I obviously was super excited to do this chat as a passion of mine, and what an interesting story. Thank you so much to Brand Innovators in Sydney. Thank you so much. I look forward to being able to do this again with you and continue conversations.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both so much. This was awesome. And what an amazing story, Tim. I mean, I got to try these products as soon as possible.
That would be awesome. We're happy to send products, so just let us know.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely let you know. But thank you both so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was awesome. Thank you both again so much for a great conversation. Up next, we are going to have Erin Cast, the General Manager of Royal Canaan Mars, and their conversation is going to be moderated by Ian O'Donnell, Enterprise Account Executive from CPG Google Cloud Platform, Google. So we're going to get them. Hi, Erin. How are you?
How are you? Good to see you, Sydney.
Good to see you too. So glad to have you up and talking with our community. Hi, Ian.
Hey, how are you, Cindy?
Good. I will leave it to you both, shut my camera off and let you guys get going. But thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Sydney. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Ian.
Hey, Erin, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Well,
Good.
hey, I'm excited about this conversation because being a 25-year veteran in the CPG product space and being at Mars for 12 of those years, I'm very excited to really dive deep into your background and really understand where you came from. And so I'd love to start it off with, can you tell us your story? How, what was the way in the path you became to eventually become the general manager at Royal Canaan?
Sounds good. Thanks, Ian. So my path isn't necessarily a linear one. I have moved from sales, actually, where I started, to marketing and eventually to general management most recently, and had the opportunity to work across some incredible categories, from basically stilettos to potato chips and snack bars and beauty, and most recently working across pet care, which is a first for me. So I actually started on the sales floor, paying my way through college, and worked my way up over 10 years and had the opportunity to work for brands like Gucci and Prada, first on the sales floor, then in management and buying. And I eventually decided that I needed to go back to school. I loved marketing. I couldn't get a job in marketing out of sales without a massive pay cut. So I went back to school and I started post-MBA at a company called Frito-Lay with an incredible group of people. It was a great kind of basis in CPG at the time, with a very fast pace and great brands. I moved into L'Oreal afterwards. So I really missed some of the fashion and trend background from my luxury retail days. So moved to L'Oreal and had an opportunity to work for the company for 10 years across every single category within their consumer division. And, the last couple of years that I was there, I spent a lot of time on digital transformation, which was a big challenge for the company. We were, challenged to move quickly and learn a lot. And then also worked in acquisitions. And that's really what kind of caused a career pivot for me. I became incredibly interested in media. I thought I knew a little bit, but I wanted to learn more, and also very, very intrigued by founder-led companies. I was kind of fascinated by these models that worked differently than big CPG companies and what you could learn from that. So I moved to a great media company called Mindshare afterwards, working across the Unilever portfolio. So I got to work across ice cream and a bunch of different categories, and then moved over to Kind, which had been one of the fastest growing brands within food, and really worked on some of the first advertising and media campaigns and got to work closely with the founder, which was great. From there, I decided to go back into beauty. I missed it. So I moved over to Coty and first worked across our luxury portfolio, again, working on brands like Gucci. I launched Gucci Beauty at Sephora, and then worked as the global CMO across CoverGirl and Sally Hansen. And in the past year, I've had the opportunity to work for Mars and to work for Royal Canaan, which has been my first kind of entry into pet care, which I found was just a fascinating category. I have 2 pets. I'm a lover of pets, so it was great to have a chance to really learn. And what really attracted me was that Mars is an incredibly values-based company, which I'm sure from your background. And also Royal Canin has just phenomenal products in a very different model. It's very advocacy based. We were actually created by a veterinarian. And so the opportunity to work with great products and with an advocacy model was really very intriguing.
Wow, great response, Erin. And at Google, I mean, we hear words like sustainability. I know it's a huge initiative from the Google side, but from Mars's and from Royal Canin's perspective, it's a big, broad topic, and we cover a lot of things from packaging to ingredients to emissions. How does Royal Canin Mars view sustainability, and how are you prioritizing where to take action?
Sure. So really good question. I think, in terms of our approach, it's very much a holistic approach. So we focus on a healthy planet, on thriving people, and on pet well-being. So from a healthy planet perspective, one of the focus areas is on sustainable sourcing. Today, 100% of our fish is sourced sustainably. We also have just launched a range of products that have algae oil, which is a sustainable source of DHA, but also looking to continue to build off of this in the future. We're, of course, reducing waste wherever we can across the supply chain. And then we've committed to have 100% of our packaging be recyclable, recoverable, or compostable by 2025. All of our cans are today, and we're building off of this as well. Second, when we look at the second biggest priority, it's thriving people. And here there's two initiatives that we're working on. One is a student support fund at Tuskegee. It's a veterinary college that really we think will help build more diversity within the veterinary community. So we kicked that off last year in partnership with Banfield. We also have a pet nutrition advisor program. So as we looked at vet technicians, we saw that one of the biggest gaps in curriculum is around nutrition, which is an area where obviously we're quite passionate. So it's an opportunity to really build a curriculum and close that gap. And then finally, on pet well-being, we think there's a tremendous opportunity to educate on preventative care. We have a program called Take Your Cat to the Vet. It's an area where there's some of the biggest gaps in preventive care. So that's been a multi-year kind of commitment from as we use advertising dollars, in-store signage to make sure that we're promoting taking your cat to the vet. And then we also have a great program called Puppies for Parole. And this is a program where we essentially pair inmates with puppies at shelters who are in need of training. And so it's an opportunity for inmates to give back, and also for puppies to be much more likely to be placed in a forever home because they've been trained. In terms of where we prioritize, there's a lot of things that we're focused on across the organization. I love that we have consistent KPIs across, embedded in every part of our organization. But two things that my team is working on is one, a partnership with the Pet Sustainability Coalition. This is a great organization that has incredible training resources. And so we've just kicked off a web series where they're educating our teams in terms of sustainability initiatives. The second is around, because we're an omni-channel team, very focused on e-commerce waste and how we can reduce that throughout the supply chain. So lots of work being done and definitely very focused on our mission here.
Amazing. Where does inclusivity fit within your team?
Great question. So in terms of inclusivity, we believe at Mars that in the world we want tomorrow, society is inclusive and it's diverse. One of the ways that this shows up is with our associates across our population of 130,000 people. Really, I think we want to make sure that our associates feel valued and they feel respected and that they can bring their authentic selves to work. So that's one of our biggest priorities. And then as we think of our strategy, there's 4 key areas of focus. One is ensuring that all of our leaders are really champions and accountable champions of I&D. And when I say accountable champions, it means we have KPIs that we're focused on across this and very committed to. The second is a culture that values the power of differences. And third is really harnessing those differences. So we firmly believe and we see that teams that have diversity of thought and approach absolutely are more powerful teams. So we're making sure that this is a core focus area for us. And then finally, it's making sure that we have policies and practices in place to support this and make it easier. So programs like unconscious bias programs where we're enabling our teams to do better and really be committed to improving and to change.
Amazing. And I know you said matrix. I mean, I know Mars is, everybody's looking at KPIs. Is that how you measure the progress of all of these initiatives?
I'd say it's very data driven, but also qualitative. So we want to make sure we have a single source of truth, so that there's, clarity in terms of, we know what we need to do now, how are we doing against it, but we look at data and analytics and measure against a scorecard, but we also have surveys with our teams to make sure that we're getting quantitative and qualitative feedback to measure change.
Outstanding. Well, let's go here. So millenniums and Gen Z, I'm still trying to figure them all out, but what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of them?
So it's a very good question. Gen Z, my kids come to mind, frankly, and they're teaching me. But no, I think there's, really a lot of differences between the two and also within the generations. But very broadly speaking, Gen Z, I think of as being digitally native. Grew up with phones in hand, and really there's this very fluid movement from online to offline. And for millennials, I think of millennials as being very aspirational and very adaptive. And so, as we think of how that intersects with our category in pet care, there's some really interesting insights that we found. So millennials first really view their pet as family. And this is so unique because I think if you think of previous generations, a pet was, it really wasn't part of the family. So you invest differently, I think, in health and nutrition and services when you view a pet as family. They're willing to pay more for that. They're much more involved with services, insurance, veterinarians, and looking to them for advice. And really notably, we see that millennials value subscriptions more than any other generation too. So lots of opportunity to make sure that process of really signing up for a subscription is a good one that adds value beyond just price promotion. For Gen Z, what we see is they don't trust necessarily marketers or brands. They trust people, and they look for sources online and offline. And so, as we think of pet professionals in particular, where we have a lot of partnerships, a millennial consumer is much more likely to rely on the vet, where we see that Gen Z relies on a vet, a breeder, a groomer, a dog walker, the people that they see at the park. So really multiple different sources of information, less so a brand giving them, the information. So really there we're focused on how do we make sure that we're influencing with advocates who are proponents of our brand in a way that intersects with where Gen Z is really, looking for that information.
Excellent. And do you find them a more loyal customer base? And what programs and initiatives are important to them?
Yeah, we are very, very lucky. We have among the highest loyalty rates I've seen across generations. So I actually asked my team to show me the numbers over and over and over again because I didn't believe it at first. But I think there's two things that really drive a very high degree of loyalty across generations for the brand. So the first one is products that are really, they're science-based, they're customized with a focus on nutrition and health. And so, our consumers see that products work. And I think that's the biggest driver of loyalty. And for us, it's really about compliance because we know that a pet who gets the products more frequently or continuously is going to be a healthier pet. So, building that compliance with products that work very effectively is really key. The other area where we see a lot of where we see loyalty really being built is across that intersection with pet professionals. Because we were created by a vet, because it's been, that interaction with vets in the vet community and beyond that, breeders and groomers has been part of our DNA since the very beginning. That's an area where we definitely see consumers looking for advice and those pet professionals advocating for our brand and driving loyalty.
Amazing. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about search trends. So at Google, and hey, we invented the search, right? We're seeing search trends over 60% in topics like pet food. Is it organic? Where are the ingredients sourced? Are you guys looking for trends with regard to specific genres to understand what they're thinking that is important?
Absolutely. So what we really look at, we absolutely look at search trends and find it fascinating to see how they evolve over time. And where we see an intersection of search trends and our philosophy and point of view is where we really spend the most time, particularly on building out education and content, less product-based because it's very nutrition-based, but really looking at education and content. So one of the areas that we find really interesting as we look at search content is that signaling of the change between a healthy and a sick pet. I talked a little bit about cats earlier, and we know that less than 50% of cats regularly go to a vet, and which is a challenge to begin with. But when you compound that with the fact that cats are incredibly good at actually hiding symptoms, what we find through search trends and also from veterinarians and other feedback is that often cats don't get care until they're at a critical stage. And so a focus for us is, how can you actually use some of those signals through search and elsewhere to help to encourage, getting a cat to a vet much earlier to have preventive care instead. One of the other things that we see from search data is that finding the right food is really confusing. There's been a lot of innovation within pet care. We know that the science category, which we're in, has grown. There's fresh food that's growing, et cetera. A lot of different messaging. So we've seen through search trends and also through the pet professionals that we work with that this is a particular area of concern in the ecosystem. So here we're really focused on, how do you develop tools that can help to simplify that process? So we've developed a digital tool and an in-store tool that's a food finder that really kind of simplifies the navigation of that process.
Amazing. Well, Erin, you have laid out an amazing career, and as a mentor, what advice would you give people who are in high school, coming up, going to college, and starting their careers? And what, if anything, you could go back in time and actually say, I wish I knew, what I know now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And I think that the first thing is just to kind of find what engages you and drives you and to navigate your path, like embedding that throughout the process. Because I think, there's a myth sometimes, and I certainly believe this when I was first starting out in marketing, that the way you progress and get ahead is through working on the biggest brands and working with the biggest budgets. And so, I think there was a bias earlier in my career to make sure that I was doing that. And I, over time, I was lucky that I was able to progress, but I got to kind of a pivotal point in my career where I looked back and it wasn't as satisfied as I thought I would be. I worked hard. I was proud of what I'd done, but it just, I didn't have the feeling that I expected at that point. And as I became more thoughtful and started to look back, what I found is that the things that really kind of engaged me were when I was driving change, when I was working with a team and had that sense of camaraderie of a team that's trying to get something done that's challenging, when I was learning, and often when I didn't know what I was doing and was kind of faced with that challenge of like, figure it out, sink or swim, and get it done. I found that as a really great way to actually kind of learn and evolve. So it'll be different for everybody, but I think if you can kind of think through those things that really engage you and embed that in your path, it's incredibly beneficial. That's what really, shifted me at a certain point in time to pivot into media and founder-led brands, and it kind of this rapid pace change that I think built more of a diversity to my background, and more importantly, just really engaged me and made me quite happy with what I was doing. The second area of advice that I'd say is just, be curious and be focused on continuing to learn. So, I think it's risky when you get to a point where you feel like you know everything, and it's not good for you. It's not good for your team. So, I try to put myself in situations where I don't know and I have to figure it out. I also think, that curiosity that you have in the first 3 or 6 months when you join a company, and, everything's firing and you're trying to figure it out, I think is just invaluable. So capturing that, either for yourself, if you're the person in that role, or for your team, and making sure that you really kind of capture their insights, builds a more diverse and a more powerful team. One of the things that I found when I joined Mars and Royal Canaan in particular was that, they gave us the first 90 days just to onboard. And it was almost unsettling in the beginning because, I felt like I needed to be doing so much. And I had a chance to take weeks of nutritional training to really understand the brand, to have access to global leaders, to really learn. And at the end of the 90 days, I got to present out to our leadership team, what did I learn through that process? And I've also done the same with my newer team members. And that's where I think we really continue to kind of evolve and be agile and stay sharper, and definitely very invaluable for me.
Excellent. Wow, Erin, I think we got 1 minute for questions. Is there any questions in the chat that came through? Let's see. all positive things around that's such an inspiring leader at Royal Canaan. You're just getting praises, Erin. So
that's so nice.
Yeah, well done. It was a pleasure to share the stage with you today. And if everybody, I'm a dog and cat lover. I own both, and I love Royal Canaan. I always have. So if you haven't tried the product, please go ahead. It's the best in the business. So
thank you, Ian. Appreciate it.
Thank you both so much. Seriously, this was an amazing chat. Honestly, got a little bit of an insight. Hope to be super soon a dog owner myself. So we'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And I'm glad to know all of this. So thank you both again for the time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Erin.
it. Bye, Al.
All right. So with that is the end of our day. Thank you everyone for joining us, for tuning in. Big shout out to our speakers, our sponsors, our audience. Be sure to check out the Brand Innovators website to learn about upcoming events, virtual, in person, and all of that. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.